Alright, so welcome back to the channel, and today I'm reacting once again to a documentary, The Look, by Jeremy Newson. And in today's video we're talking about Stüssy. There seems to be this really strange misconception that I don't like streetwear, which is so weird because a lot of fashion is inspired by what happens on the street, and there are loads of streetwear brands that what they do is really inspiring and I really like what they like. I don't know, it's this weird thing in fashion where you can't be into high fashion and be into streetwear, and people put them into different categories. But to me, if you're a fan of fashion, you're a fan of every single type of fashion, whether we're talking about streetwear or high-end fashion, whatever that means now, couture, all those sort of things. So I'm into everything, and Stüssy is definitely a brand that I like. I like what they do. I like what the brand has represented for so many years. So yeah, let's get straight into the reaction.
As Carl is congratulated for his new ideas, street style and the environment, for which he's paid £4 million a year, teams of Chanel copyright lawyers are out there scouring the world for counterfeit versions. Then what's this pastiche Chanel logo under their very noses? Interlocked S's, sign of cult designer Shawn Stussy.
Pants and shirts and jackets and hats.
It's basically baseball caps and t-shirts and jeans.
There's some corduroys, yes. There's leather jackets. There's a lot of hats.
A lot of people collect them, these, there's 10 colours, and a lot of people will buy every single colour, And then as soon as there's something new, they got all of them colours. I mean, we sell hundreds of them a week.
We got some hats. No, wait a minute, we don't have hats. Every bin is empty. We're out of hats.
Now the hottest hats in town, a testament to ex-skateboarder Shawn Stussy's snowballing success at satisfying today's logo junkie by offering up a variety of signs in a knowing use of brand awareness.
Why did they call Shawn Stussy an ex-skateboarder? To me, Shawn Stussy has more ties to surfing than he does to skateboarding. That's just weird. I thought people would refer to Shawn Stussy as more of a surfer, or someone that because he used to shape surfboards. And that's kind of how the brand of Stüssy came about. I can get into it, where he used to make sort of surfboards, but he used to shape them and make really interesting designs on surfboards. And then what happened was he had the idea to use some of the designs that he made for the boards and then printed them on t-shirts, and that's kind of what became a really big thing, and that's how Stüssy came about, and it kind of expanded from there. Of course, things that come from the street and are authentic, there are a lot of similarities between skate and surf culture. So when a lot of surfers are wearing something, then a lot of skaters are wearing it, then before you know it, a lot of BMXers are wearing it, the roller skaters, and that's how it organically grows from there. But yeah, that's kind of strange that they called him an ex-skateboarder.
Come along now, brothers and sisters, open up your mind, don't be making a vista. Give a little love, show a little kindness. Too much.
Here is the Stüssy Tribe hat, wool two-tone hat.
Stüssy's dope.
Stüssy's cool.
Full effect, man. They're hot. He is hot. Clothes are dope.
Now it's a uniform in all high schools. I mean, it's basically for surfers who aren't surfers, who want casual, comfortable clothes at an inexpensive price.
But the conoscenti are every bit as demanding as Chanel wearers.
Nah, it's a fashion statement. Oh, people are gonna know.
And as with Chanel, the visible signs of style have a bonding effect.
Stüssy International Tribe.
Why is it called a tribe? It could have been a posse, it could have been a crew. It's definitely a group of people. It's an international tribe. It's friends in all these cities.
You want more? Get on the floor, I'll give you something that I'm sure you'll adore. You want more? Get on the floor, I'll give you something that I'm sure you'll adore. The sweet B on the MIC, the WHIP, me.
A tribe, I don't know, I just think it was on a much more earthy tip than a posse. This wasn't a big posse of badass people. A tribe was a very organic word. It had a good old world feel to it, and it just kind of stood the test of time. So the IST, the International Stüssy Tribe, is just been kind of a moniker that stuck, and I always liked it along the way, so I don't know, we kind of use it.
It could also stand for international style trends. Shawn Stussy has noted the world's trade in import and export of national styles, the American casual look now being a virtual uniform for the young of the world.
You know, you go to Europe and there's like a Chippy Chevignon and 20 other people that all make the exact same kind of clothes, which is on an American Western thrift shop tip. I grew up with that since I was 5 years old, and we've worn khakis and white T-shirts. And I go to England, and I go to London, and they're wearing Timberland boots and big puffy down jackets and wool-rich shirts. I mean, we grew up on that. You know, that's like if you lived in America. I mean, you had 501s, and you had Jack Purcell sneakers, and you had Timberland hiking boots and flannel shirts from Penny's. There's just so many angles to it. You got the Married by the Mob, New Jersey, like big-haired East Coast chick, and you got the LA, like, other bigger hair, just as big or bigger blonde hair bimbo. You got the New York City, Spike Lee, homeboy, athletic look. You know, these are all stereotypes, and what's different than the skate kid wearing really long shorts and big Adidas, and every black guy trying to look like Spike Lee? I mean, half of the black guys under 20 years old look just like Spike Lee, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, everybody's out looking for an identity.
One thing I've noticed about Stüssy, and I think it's why it's so successful, and I think it's why I've just loved the brand, especially from a marketing perspective. Oh my God, Stüssy, in terms of marketing, is a masterclass. Like, anyone that has a brand needs to look at the way Stüssy has marketed. It's so authentic. Like, when they do campaigns, it never comes across as like, you know, when you look at a Chanel campaign or Balenciaga campaign, it's too proper. It's like, these people are trying to sell me something. When you look at a Stüssy campaign, it just looks like people having fun, and then they just snapped a picture. Like, it's so authentic. Like, every element of the brand is quite authentic. And I like that he was talking about identities and how people like to fit in different identities. I think that's something very prevalent in the realm of high fashion, once again, whatever that means. Because there are a lot of people who, like, good example is they wear CCP and they think they're different because they wear CCP, not realizing that the reason they wear CCP might not necessarily be because they necessarily like the brand that much. It might be because they know that wearing that brand, other people look at them like, oh, you wear CCP, you must be really, really into fashion. And that feeling that they get and that recognition that they get, they're more addicted to that than how much they actually like the clothing. And that is the case for many different people. I definitely used to do that. I definitely was what you call a high fashion hype beast. So, you know, the hype beast that everyone knows is like people that wear Supreme. But I think people that wear the most obvious high fashion pieces that everyone wears, like you only wear Tabby boots and Rick Owens Kiss Heels, and like there's nothing else in your wardrobe but just like things that are extremely popular in the high fashion realm. In my opinion, there's no difference between doing that and buying the only popular pieces of Supreme. It's the exact same thing. It's just a different price point and it's viewed differently, even though it's the same thing. I definitely used to do that until I realized that that was what I was doing. And then I decided when I want to wear a hoodie, I'll just wear a hoodie. When I want to dress up and wear Andy, I'll wear Andy. If I want to wear suits, I'll wear a suit. Forget trying to be seen as stylish to different people or trying to dress in a way that I know people perceive me as, oh, this guy's really into fashion. Like he's wearing Loewe with Rick Owens. Like I totally got away from that. And going back to Stüssy, I think that's why it's so successful. It's this idea that you don't have to force yourself to be like everyone else. Stüssy had its own aesthetic, its own identity, its own tribe, and it just stayed within that. It didn't try to chase the trends as clothing changed.
And the wise designer stays in touch with his market.
It's like derives from music that I listen to, or something that we will see in a club and actually go and do it, or you know, from traveling around. You bring home, you go to New York nightclub and you listen to kind of dance beats. You go to Europe, come home and go surfing in your own hometown for a month, and just by keeping your eyes open and absorbing all this stuff, maybe just this weird breed of it comes out that caters to all these people. And it's kind of a unique tip it's on right now because it is hitting an oddball, eclectic group of people.
The eclectic Stüssy tribe uniform, with its astute amalgam of anti-mainstream cultural influences, urban West Coast, hip-hop, surf, skateboarding and the club scene, seduces a worldwide youth market.
I have Japanese customers buy 40 pieces at a time. It's gone. He's going to go all the way.
But does he want to? Is bigger better?
I want to be exclusive, and I do not care about huge sales.
Well, that's what the street wants to hear.
I didn't go to school for marketing, merchandising, or production. We kind of are just learning it as we go along. We spend hardly any money on advertising. I mean, if you spend $2 million on advertising and you don't make any money that year, I'd rather make $2 million and have no advertising.
I totally agree with that. And I think one of the best things that someone can do is learning by actually experiencing something. Like, how I feel is like you can go to 5 billion marketing courses if you want, but if you haven't actually run marketing for a business and seen if it works or not, you don't know what you're doing. Like, just because you've read all these things in a book, it's not the same. It's never the same as doing it in real life. That's why people go to university and get really complicated degrees, and yet they still have to be trained to do their job when they start. So honestly, I really love their approach, and I think it's why their marketing is so innovative. It's this whole trial and error thing, and it's what it came out of. It was really just, oh, I'm gonna make surfboards, then I'm gonna print on t-shirts, and then, oh, I have this cool idea to do this. It's never really like forced. It wasn't forced, especially in the start. And that's something that I really love about Stüssy.
Fortunately, word of mouth is free.
If one guy loves those pairs of jeans, then 10 other guys come by, and if they take them home and they're made well and they don't fall apart, and that homeboy's stoked with it, that's better advertising.
Amazing point. Amazing point. So he just said that word of mouth is free, and if one person has such a good experience with your clothing or your brand, they're going to talk about it to other people, and that's how word spreads. And that's so true. And that's why I don't know why, you know, the really, really expensive like luxury brands that spend millions and millions on marketing, they don't prioritize what actually matters, which is quality. Like so many brands, and I know I say Balenciaga a lot, it's just because I feel like the quality of Balenciaga is so terrible compared to like how it used to be, which is why Balenciaga is like my scapegoat for everything. But it's just like, don't they realize that the more people are saying, oh, the quality is terrible, less people buy it. And yes, you spend loads of money on marketing, but the ship will sink eventually if you're not careful. And that's why I just love, and this is why I say Stüssy is genuine. They care about, as a brand, they cared about the right things. Of course, this documentary was made in the early 90s. Shortly after, Shawn Stussy himself left the brand to his partner, but they still kept the identity of the brand. And the Stüssy stuff that I've bought, they aren't bad quality. They're quite good quality, especially because the price point is a lot cheaper than a lot of brands that have a similar quality level. So yeah, honestly, just a big fan of Stüssy, to be honest.
We're probably good at like pulling the reins on letting it get too big more than anything else, and that's why people have wanted it for a long period of time.
It's not in every store on the block, you know, so people still really want it.
Like it could right now be in a lot more stores and be like a big thing that was doing like double the amount of sales of the stuff, but then, you know, you guys wouldn't be here wanting to talk about it, and all my homeboys wouldn't want to wear it because everybody else did. So there's really a fine line and a natural like growth pattern to it. Frank and I never were like big shot kind of wannabe greedy guys. We've really like tried to like be true to ourselves and like have it from the soul more, and not like say yes to a bunch of money.
But say yes to a turnover of around $30 million a year, with marketing every bit as sophisticated as Chanel's. Your customers advertise the product while wearing them, striking that curious balance between extroversion and exclusivity. It's street culture as big business, despite its apparent disingenuity.
Yeah, it ain't no market study or anything. I don't know why. You know, it's catches me as off guard as anything. And all I got to do is just, or all I can do is to keep doing what I like to do, and keeping some like honor in the who you sell it to, and not wanting it to be in everybody's store. But then I'm this year's model, and the people aren't going to want it next year. So it's really and I mean, where's the textbook on that? You know, how many people do you sell it to? And at what number is it then a sold out deal? I don't know. There's nothing to judge it on.
In fashion, the ultimate judge of a designer's success is the market, pure and simple. The most successful designers are attuned to their times and trade in a design dialogue.
Fashion does start from the street, you know, and like there are very few designers that are actually on it, you know.
I agree. A lot of designers, and it's really annoying, especially for the high-end brands that are very respected, they like to pretend that fashion doesn't come from the street when it does. If you look at people like Alessandro Michele and his aesthetic, that definitely comes from the street. He's even made a collection that took heavy references from Dapper Dan. Damn near copied Dapper Dan, to be fair. It wasn't really like referencing, it was really just copying. And there's people like Kim Jones, but although Kim Jones admits to it more, he's definitely inspired by what happens on the street. There's people like Virgil Abloh, of course. And I think Virgil Abloh, a lot of people like to hate his work. I think he's just quite misunderstood, especially with his recent collections at Louis Vuitton. I really like them. Brands like Hood by Air, a lot of these brands, a lot of people just like to think that streetwear or street clothing is just like irrelevant. And to me, I just find it so hilarious when that influences most of what we see on the catwalk and on runways. It's just so funny how people just like to convince themselves that we're on like this higher level of fashion and we don't look at what happens on the street because we don't concern ourselves with what happens from the street, but literally you're wearing a jacket that's like an appropriation of what was going on in the Bronx in like the 1980s. Like, it makes absolutely no sense.
I love designers like Vivienne Westwood, Michiko Kashino, John Richmond. I think like they're all great designers, and I've got some of their clothes. But at the end of the day, you can't wear like their clothes all the time. There's too much of a uniform.
Where do they get their original inspiration from? From clubs.
Even one of my favourite designers, but she's also really open about it, gets a lot of her inspiration from the street. Martine Rose, she gets a lot of inspiration from whether it's time periods in London and how they dress to certain rave subcultures in London and stuff like that. Priya Ahluwalia, same thing. Most designers are inspired by the street. And I like the ones that do own up to it, because every designer I know is in one way or another inspired by stuff that goes on in the street, what people are wearing day to day, especially people like Demna Gvasalia. But they like to act like it's not, and it's just so weird, honestly.
Whatever the guys see when they turn on Yawl or whatever program, they see their favourite group, they want that hat, they want that jacket, they want those shoes, they want the exact ones they see the people wearing.
Aspiration and imitation. The hat is the Chanel bag of street culture.
These ones at the top, they're from New York, and you've got all the rap groups wearing these now. Like Bobby Brown wears them, Naughty by Nature, too many groups to mention. We call it funky noddies. These are like more traditional baseball hats. Raiders, very popular. A lot of people say it's because they had a certain black player that was black, started wearing them. A lot of gang people started wearing them, and a lot of kids picked up from the videos again. You've got the guy with the two swords and the patch. It's kind of like a renegade type of image, you know. And like next down, we've got the X ones. They're coming really big now. The actual authentic ones from Spike Lee's shop in Decap Avenue, Brooklyn. And they're genuine ones, so you have to pay a little bit more for them. We have the old hip hop ones here. Kango hats, traditional kangaroo ones here, made in England. They were very popular with the B-boys a while back. They're coming back now. Kango hats. Next down, we've got traditional ones again, the red, gold and green ones, very cultural. They're traditionally to do with reggae music culture. And a lot of tourists like them because they identify them with Bob Marley and other reggae groups. But they started out as actual official colours of the Rastafarian religion. Yeah, this is the big one when you've got a big crown of locks. You have to be growing for at least 6 years to get in there. That's a quite big size one. Call that a big crown. A people without the knowledge of their past, history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Marcus Messiah Garvey. Well, cross colours, the whole thing is clothing without prejudice. So what they do, they get a lot of bright colours and designs and tend to mix their designs together to give it that kind of multicolour feel. And they're very, very big in New York at the moment. It's supposed to be some kind of bringing together of the colours, including the gangs, like the Cribs and the Bloods.
A lot of the rappers or performers, rappers, they're kind of wearing it. But I mean, I didn't actually consciously think of doing that. It just happens that they're very baggy. But I think gradually this starts getting incorporated into the mainstream of fashion, and then it becomes the sort of norm to wear this kind of stuff. You know, I mean, right now it's still sort of like embedded in kind of youth culture, but as time goes on, it become popular and become commercialized. It may even be destroyed. It may even be looked to seem like it's nothing new. So it's just an evolution of fashion.
This isn't a design team. This isn't merchandisers and PR people, as you spoke of earlier, wanting free clothes. This isn't an ad agency. This isn't, you know, it just has none of that. It's just a lean organization. It's got no fat. And there's no VPs. There's no merchandisers, VP merchandisers that go with a business of this size or in this area. You know, we have just this against the whole grain of business in our business. We're just like busting down every wall and doing it the exact opposite way of the norm.
The reason why I wasn't filming in my usual place, which is literally in my bedroom, is because it's burning hot today, as you could probably see by the sun blazing in my face the whole video. So I had to film in my living room. And it's also cool, like it's a comfy vibe. I think people like watching videos where someone's in a comfy place rather than something being overly polished in some like really fancy smancy studio. But yeah, so that was really fun watching. My next video is going to be on my style evolution over the years, and that should be an interesting video because I talk about the reasons why in that video, why I wore things. It'll be quite interesting when I make that video and talk about streetwear. And I think another important thing to note about streetwear is the reason why it starts, like the trends normally start from working class individuals, is because most times they have to do things out of necessity. Like if you look at Vetements and the oversized hoodies, that sort of stuff comes from the fact that people just couldn't afford to buy new clothing. So they would wear, like their older siblings would pass down clothing to them. And that's why it became trendy at a point, even before Vetements started making hoodies like that, to wear really oversized hoodies. Or you look at subcultures or styles like the zoot suits, that came from people who obviously couldn't afford to buy suits, so they would wear their dad's suits and then wear the trousers really high-waisted and then style the jacket in certain ways so it didn't look silly, and then it kind of became a style trend. And that's how most things permeate from the street all the way to the catwalk, to the point where that's why a lot of people, if you're very involved in a certain subculture and you see it on the runway, but the time the designers on the runway see it, it's so late at that point, which is why it becomes cringy. And that's why I like brands like Stüssy, because Stüssy, they're so involved in like every subculture, whether it's surfing, skateboarding, BMXing, hip hop, so many subcultures, that when something new is starting to prop up, Stüssy will be one of the first brands to actually notice it and sort of promote it on that large scale. And I think that's what sets Stüssy apart from many other brands. I think there's so many brands that have hoodies or t-shirts or whatever, but in terms of the marketing, the message, where it comes from and how authentic every element of the brand is, it's not the same. Now, if you guys want to learn more about streetwear and what it is in terms of its essence, not on what like streetwear is now, which people say is like t-shirts and hoodies, which isn't really what streetwear is, there's this really good book. It's by King Ads and Wilma Stone. It's called This Is Not Fashion, Streetwear, Past, Present and Future. And in this book, they also have a very good section on Stüssy and what Stüssy means to streetwear. And I haven't actually read this book for a while, and then I reread it again before this video. And there's some stuff that we should probably talk about concerning Stüssy because it's really important. Okay, perfect. So in this book, they talk about how Shawn Stussy left the brand and sold it to his business partner at the time, Frank Sinatra. And Shawn Stussy wanted to focus on his family and his kids, and that's why he left the brand, right? But he's still like, he can be involved whenever he wants because he's Shawn Stussy. And he did definitely come back and work on a few projects. But anyway, when it came to Frank Sinatra, when that sort of aesthetic and the hype of Stüssy sort of came down, which happens with every brand has, you know, it goes up for a while and it comes down and you have to, you know, just make sure you survive and then you come up. And he tried so many different things. He tried to work with the big photographers. I remember in this book they were talking about how he tried to work with Jürgen Teller and it didn't really work. And that's why I think Stüssy has always been about the essence, because anytime they go away from the essence, it doesn't really work. And when it started becoming successful again was when Frank Sinatra involved his son. And his son got really involved in the brand because now they were in the digital age and the internet. And obviously his son, being younger, knows how social media works and things like that. And that's why I feel like Stüssy, and that's why I say in terms of marketing masterclass, Stüssy is definitely a brand to look at. They're always thinking of what the most authentic way is to market to people. And of course, a young person running the marketing and, you know, having a say and input on campaigns that are geared towards other young people is why it works. There's a lot of brands and you have these like 60-year-old marketing execs who grew up in, you know, Chelsea in London and all these posh places and are so disconnected from anyone really. And these are the people running marketing campaigns that are supposed to reach Gen Z, because I know a lot of brands are really, you know, obsessed with having Gen Z consumers because they're the future. And I think all those brands, honestly, have a lot to learn from Stüssy. But yeah, there's so much more about Stüssy in this book. But yeah, if you guys want to learn more about streetwear, which I think is important, I would actually recommend it to everyone. Then definitely check this book out. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. I'll also leave a link to the full documentary in the description below. But on that note, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys are looking forward to the next video about my style evolution. It's going to be quite hilarious, talking about all my funny outfits from my childhood. And before I go, of course, if you want to support my channel financially, then you can do so by subscribing to the Patreon. It's $3 a month, and for that you get access to exclusive content and also discounts for stuff that I release. Like I'm working on a capsule collection. There's going to be discounts for that. In the past there have been discounts for my magazine or my tote bags on the Patreon. So yeah, there's many other benefits. And yeah, on that note, I'll be back with another video very soon. Stay tuned.